This presentation will teach you how to create a concept map using Microsoft Word. Specifically, we are going to talk about the concept map, SmartArt versus shapes, how to create a SmartArt diagram, how to create a concept map using shapes, and how to title your concept map once you are finished. First, let's talk about what is a concept map. It's a diagram that shows the relationship among concepts. So, what that really means is that it's a picture that shows how everything is connected. Let's talk first about how a concept map looks as a SmartArt diagram. It's a diagram that has already been created for you, and all you need to do is plug in the information. Although it's very limited. There are only so many things that you can do with these kind of diagrams. Now let's talk a little bit about shapes. Shapes are very unique and have a lot more opportunity because you build it. In fact, you build it the way you want. So you can choose to make any kind of diagram, you can choose the colors that you would like to use, and you can choose where you want all of the different pieces in the diagram. Alright, so let's get started by looking at SmartArt and how to create it in your Microsoft Word document. The first thing you want to do is make sure and open up Microsoft Word. Once you have it open, click on the Insert tab and then click SmartArt under Illustrations. This will bring up a menu to choose from. In this menu, if you leave the tab on All, you can look at every single SmartArt graphic that is available. Or you can go through and look by category. Most of the time when you're creating a concept map, you will be looking at cycle or hierarchy. Let's take a look at cycle for the examples of this presentation. Now, in this area, we can click on any of these different cycles to insert them into our Word document. But I'm going to stick with the basic cycle. I click on the one I want, I can view it over on the right-hand side, and then I press OK. This will place the SmartArt into my Word document. Now there are two different things I can look at the very top of your Word document. They're called Design and Format. Under Design, you can choose between the Layout and SmartArt styles. This means that once you have your SmartArt graphic in your document, maybe you don't like the way it actually looks. Under Layout, you can click other options and view them to see if it's something that you might like better. If those options still don't look quite right, you can click on the More button, which is a little arrow on the right-hand side. This will bring up even more options to choose from if you click More Layouts. But for the sake of this example, I'm going to go back again to the basic cycle graph. Then we have on the right-hand side SmartArt styles. First, you can change colors. Everything will automatically be the style of blue, but maybe you want to do something a little more retro. So for this example, I'm going to change it to more of a fluorescent color scheme. Then we have different kinds of styles next to the colors, and this will change the way that each of the pictures in your diagram look. I tend to like the beveled style, so I'm going to click Polished, and as you can see, it adds a little bit of round texture to my diagram. Next, let's say that I want to add another shape in this diagram because I have 6 items that I want to talk about instead of 5. Under Create Graphic, or rather above it, you see it has a button that says Add Shape. If you click on Add Shape, it says Add Shape After or Add Shape Before. I'm going to click on Add Shape After. When I do that, it inserts another circle into my diagram. Now I'm going to talk about adding text or words to this diagram. Where it says text, I can just simply click my mouse in that area and then type whatever I would like to type. As you can see, as I was typing, the font size, the size of my words, adjusted to fit the circle. Now let's say that you wanted to add more information to this diagram in subcategories. You can go up to Add Bullet under Create Graphic. What that will do is add a bullet point underneath the area that I just typed. So now I can add additional information. I'm going to type the word blue, and then underneath it I might type the word small, because this is actually pretty hard to see. So in order to make this diagram bigger, I have to adjust the size of the diagram. I can do this by moving my mouse over to the right-hand corner of the box that goes around the entire SmartArt graphic. When I do that, my mouse will change shape. It'll change into a shape of an arrow pointing in two directions. I need to click down with the mouse and drag it outwards. This will make my graphic bigger. Now, if I wanted to make my graphic smaller, I would simply drag the opposite direction and bring it inward. Alright, I'm going to drag it back out to make it bigger so that it's easier to see. I have spent most of this time talking about the Design tab under the SmartArt tools, but we also have a Format tab. If you click on that, it will change the way the words look in each of the shapes within your SmartArt. So what I would want to do is select all my words that I have typed, and then I can go up underneath Shape Styles and Word Art Styles and change things by clicking on different buttons. If I click on Text Fill, it'll change the color that the text is. So I changed it from white now to black. Now, let's say I want to change the color of the different shapes within the diagram. I would click on the shape that I wanted to change the color for, then go up underneath Shape Styles and click on any of the options that are available. So for this one, I want a purple outline. Now let's say I wanted to change a different shape below it, a different color, and I don't like any of the shape styles available. I would just click on the More arrow to the right, and it'll bring up other options. So maybe I would like to use the red color option. This gives you a basic idea of how to use the SmartArt tools within Microsoft Word to create concept maps. Now let's talk a little bit about how to create shapes and how to use those to create concept maps. When you are creating a shape concept map, you need to go under the Insert tab, click on Shapes, and then a bunch of selections will appear for what kind of shape you'd like to insert into your document. For the purposes of this presentation, I am going to choose the circle under Basic Shapes. In order to create the shape, I need to click down in the document and draw outward to create the shape that I want. Once you have created your shape, you can change the sizing of it to make it proportional. I'm going to click in the size area and change the numbers for height and the numbers to width to being exactly the same. So I'm going to change it to 1 inch for height and 1 inch for width. So now, as you can see, I have a perfectly proportional circle. If I wanted to make it bigger, I would just change it to 2 inches for height and 2 inches for width. Now let's talk a little bit about color. As you know, blue is the default color style. If I wanted to change that, all I need to do is go under the Format tab under Shape Styles and click on the little More area to get a full selection of different colors. For this example, I want to choose the color purple. Now let's say I would like to add effects to this circle. Under Shape Styles again, we have Shape Effects. If I click on the little arrow next to the word, I have a bunch of different selections that I can choose from. I think I want to look in the shadow area and make it look like my circle is levitating. So I just added a shadow underneath my circle to make it look like it's being raised up from the page. Next, let's talk about how to move your shape into a different location. In order to move your circle, place your mouse into the center of your picture. Your mouse will change into a picture that looks like 4 arrows pointing in 4 different directions. When it does this, click down on the left side of your mouse and you can drag your shape to anywhere that you would like on your page. Next, instead of inserting a brand new picture and going through the whole process of formatting it, you may want to copy the picture exactly the way it looks. In order to do that, there are several different ways. I prefer to right-click on my picture with my mouse, click on Copy with the left side of my mouse, and then right-click anywhere else on my page. This will bring up another option. It says Paste Options. Select the first option under Paste Options and click on that. What you'll see is your second image has appeared nearly on top of your first. You will want to move it off of it. In order to do that, click on your shape in the very center and drag it to another place on your page. As you can see, you now have 2 different shapes that look exactly the same. Now that we have talked about the basics of shapes, we are going to talk about how to create conformity within your shapes concept map. Before we do that, it's important that you understand a very important button on your keyboard. It's called the Control key. Go ahead and take this moment to find that on your keyboard. It's usually right next to the Windows button. This will become your best friend when taking the time to maneuver your shapes into a concept map that looks very professional. Now that you have found your Control key on your keyboard, let's talk about how to use it. Most of the time, I will use my Control key to select multiple items at the same time on my Word document. You do this by clicking the first item, holding down the Control key, and then when you do this, your mouse will change into a little arrow with a plus sign and a box underneath it. And that's when you know you can select a different shape within your document. Then I'm going to go to my second picture and select that item. Now you can tell that they're both selected because they both have boxes around it. At this point in time, I want to make it so both of the circles are aligned and exactly on the same level. In order to do this, I need to go under the Drawing Tools format on my Word document and then go under the Arrange section. In the Arrange section, there's a button called Align. You want to click the little arrow next to Align. Then you want to choose the kind of alignment that you want. I want to align my shapes to the top. So if I click on this button, it will bring the lowest shape up to match the top of the highest shape. So as you can see, now both shapes are on the same line. Next, I'm going to talk about how to add words to each of these shapes. If I click on the first shape, all I need to do is start typing to add words into it. So I am going to type shape 1. Next, I'm going to type shape 2. As you can see, shape 1 is the color black and shape 2 is the color white. I want them to look the same, and I want them to be a little bit bigger so that it's easier to read. In order to do this, I'm going to use my Control key once again on my keyboard. I'm going to select shape 1, then I'm going to hit the Control key on my keyboard and hold it down and select shape 2. Once I have them both selected, and I can tell because they have a box around them, I'm going to go into the Format section where it says Word Art Styles. If you see there's a letter with a black line underneath it, if I click the arrow next to it, I can choose the color that I want my words to change to. For this situation, I want them both to be white. Then I have what's called Word Art Styles. If I click the little More button next to the styles, I can choose from a lot of different styles to make my text look a little different. I'm going to select a Word Art Style. Now, as you can see, they're both changing the way they look at the same time. Now let me go up and make the text size bigger. In order to do this, I need to click on the Home tab and go under the Font section. In the Font section, you will see the number 11. If I click the little arrow next to the number 11, I can go down and select the font size that I wish. I'm going to choose font size 28. The bigger the number, the bigger the size of the text. In order to make this really look like a concept map, I want to add an arrow that shows that shape 1 transforms into shape 2. So I'm going to go back to my Insert tab and click on Shapes and click on the arrow button. Now I'm going to draw an arrow that points between the two. Now my arrow is pretty thin, and I want to change the thickness of this arrow so it's easier to see. I can do this by clicking on Shape Styles and then Shape Outline. Within Shape Outline, I can choose to change the color of my shape, but I also can go to the Weight area. It shows me the thickness of line that I can choose, and I'm going to choose the thickest line. Again, if I don't want to use the color blue, I have other options to use for my arrow by clicking on the More button next to Shape Styles. I want to choose, let's say, the color red. Now it's looking more and more like a concept map. The last thing that we can do to make our concept map look even more professional is to add a title. We can do this by adding a text box. In order to add a text box, go under the Insert tab, go to the far right where it says text. In this area is called text box. Select that option, then select the option that best fits what you're looking for. I tend to use the simple text box. Once you click on that, the text box will appear. And then I'm going to type in a catchy title. Now I don't like how small this is, so I'm going to reformat it by selecting all of the words, going under the Home tab, creating the look I want by changing the font settings to bold, changing the way the text looked to Broadway, clicking on the font size and changing the font size to 36, and then moving the title to an area that better fits my diagram. At this point in time, you can understand now the basics of a concept map. But we're not finished yet. Now you want to go on and watch the next presentation that shows how to create a concept map to help you understand how that would look in actual practice. This will help prepare you for the concept maps that you will be making in Microsoft Word from this point forward.